So we're just going to go over some of the basics of adjusting the front suspension area on the Quick 4. If you're experiencing any noises, there's a couple spots that you can check. The first would be these two bolts here. There's one here and there's one on the opposite side. They come in together and tighten down this collar onto a shaft internally. You want to make sure that they're tight. If they are tight and you're still experiencing noises, what you can do is as follows. Loosen both sides off. They are a 5mm socket, and this slides up. You don't want to take it too far off because it will end up off of this post. This plastic cover, you lift up, and you're left with this black nut underneath. We have a special headset wrench. Go over there, and you want to tighten down if you're experiencing noises or looseness in that area. You can check by moving these two sections, this section up and down, and see if you see any play in that area. If you don't have access to one of those wrenches, a large pair of pliers will work, but you need to make sure that you have a proper grip and don't strip the head of it. Once that's tightened or adjusted, put the plastic cover back on, slide the stem down, tighten up the bolts, make sure everything's aligned, and that goes over that section here. Then we move on to the suspension area. So we have this in here. This bolt feeds through and comes out the back. And there's a washer and a nylon self-locking nut on the back. We're going to take those off. You want to remove this nut and this black hex bolt so that you can free up this plate, because this does need to move. And then you want to loosen the bottom one as well. That doesn't need to come all the way off. Once those are loose, this arm can move, this black plate can come out of the way, and you can remove the spring and the rubber stopper inside. So you can see right here, there's a rubber washer, rubber gasket. That is there so that this metal bit of the spring, we'll tuck that in there so you can see that contacts the rubber stopper. And so you'll need to remove this nut if we're replacing it. Remove the nut, back the bolt out, place a new one on top, and then feed everything through and tighten down. Replacing everything, make sure the rubber damper is inside of the spring. Fit the coil in there, push everything together, and then start feeding through this bolt. Make sure it aligns with the hole in the back, and then make sure the washer and the nut fit over there. So at the back of the spring, we'll remove that. We can see right down here, there's a point of contact on this plate. And what we can do when we put everything back together is to add a touch of grease to the edges and the underside of this spring, so that when it does contact, that will help with reducing friction and hopefully reducing noise as well. And then everything will go back together. This top section does not need any lubricant because it has the rubber damper there as well. The process for putting all of this back together is as follows. You may or may not need to have taken everything apart, but if you do, cut that nut off. This back piece comes apart. This front plate comes apart. And then we have our spring and our rubber damper inside of there. So what you want to do is tighten this. Let's see. Tighten this, holding the nut so that it presses against the rubber washer, and tighten that all the way down. So again, this nut will be compressing the rubber washer and tight there. Then you want to put everything in, line up these screws with those holes, and then fit everything through. Because I don't have the nut back here, it won't fit through the rubber damper, but with the nut here, it will fit through. And then you want to flip it over, and you'll put a nut and a washer on the back of the bolt that comes out of here, and tighten that, and then a nut here, and a nut here on the two bottom ones. And that's how everything goes back together.